too high up on that spectrum of doing too much benching, right, that's when injury creeps in. But we could also be on the other side of things where we don't do enough. And sometimes benching once a week's not quite enough for a lot of people. Hey guys, Coach Ben here, bigbenchas.com. Today I'm going to answer the question of how much benching should you do to get stronger. Alright, everyone wants to know what is that sweet amount of benching, that sweet spot to getting the most gains. Okay, now I'll start off by saying more is not always better. You see these programs like small ob for squatting, things like that. A lot of squatting, a lot of frequency. You know, it'd be like if you're benching 5-6 times a week. Okay, now at first you're probably gonna get a lot out of that, but after a sustained amount of time you're gonna start getting discomforts. You might start having some injuries. A lot of people wouldn't be able to tolerate that. Okay, your recovery would have to be on point all the time. All right, so a program like that, or if you were to do a lot of benching, all right, you are going to end up burning out from that. That's not a sustainable approach. You're gonna probably end up with some injuries, some discomforts that you're gonna have to manage. Okay, so that's not a sustainable approach. Sure, maybe in a short-term period you can blast the bench like that, but looking at the big picture, keeping you pushing ahead, making sustained progress without having injury, which is what we're all about. All our athletes that come into our coaching program, I always stress, hey, I want you to make continued progress for a long time, sustained progress without hurting yourself. Because if you get injured, it takes away all that time you could have got better. Okay, so what I like to do is find that minimal effective dose. Okay, how little benching do we need to do to continue to progress? Okay, and you know, when you're too high up on that spectrum of doing too much benching, right, that's when injury creeps in. But we could also be on the other side of things where we don't do enough. And sometimes benching once a week's not quite enough for a lot of people. Okay, it's just not enough frequent stimulus to continue to get stronger at a pace you'd like. Plus you're able to handle more. So it's all about finding what can we handle to continue to make short-term progress, right, but not set ourselves up for injury. We got to be thinking years ahead. You know, can I add 15 pounds, 20 pounds to my bench this year by training like this? All right, and am I going to end up feeling good after that? All right, so it's all about finding that minimal effective dose. All right, I would tell you the sweet spot is about 2 to 3 times a week. For our full power athletes that come in, I start them out 2 times a week. I think most people are able to tolerate that. That doesn't mean that we're benching high intensity those 2 days. One day might be a little more high intensity, more volume. The other day might be lighter work, might be speed work, something that's tolerable. But we're benching, we're getting that stimulus twice a week. As a bench only lifter, I start them off usually 3 times a week because that's the only lift they're really focused on trying to bring up is that bench press. So we're going to do a little bit more for it. Now, one of those third days is more of a recovery based workout. So we have our hands on the bar, but it's not going to be high intense at all. It's going to be more for recovery purposes. Okay, so that's where I find the sweet spot is. Now there's certainly athletes, and I've definitely worked with a few, who don't tolerate 2 times benching a week very well. All right, they tolerate more once a week, and they still can find that they can make some progress that way. So why try to push that extra day, potentially get injured if they're having issues, when we can make short-term progress, you know, small progress increments once a week. Now 4 to 5 times a week, now you're on the other side of the thing. Bench only lifters, I think, might be able to get away with 4 times a week, but you really have to monitor recovery and how you set up the bench sessions. They're not going to be able to be all heavy. All right, so you got to keep that in mind if you're going to add more to your plate in terms of benching. Now I'm thinking on that one would be kind of the same setup we'd have on a 3 days a week, right, where we would do a high intensity session, probably a volume or speed, you have that recovery session, and then maybe one day you get some work in with a bamboo bar, or you change up the variant, you do a little feet up pressing, but it's not heavy. All right, you might be able to tolerate that and get great results and stay injury free. So ultimately, it comes down to it's individual to the person. Everyone doesn't like to hear that answer, but it's really going to be dependent on how the person recovers and what else is going on with their training. But do keep in mind that more is not always better. So I'm often asked, you know, can I bench 4 times a week? Can I bench 5 times a week? Is that going to get me better results? And yeah, probably in the short term, but you want to think sustained progress over time. Don't let those injuries creep in, because I also get a lot of questions about shoulder injuries, elbow issues, and we want to try to avoid that altogether. Okay, so how much bench should I do? Sweet spot, middle of the bat right there, that's about 2 to 3 times a week. All right, you can go above or below, but you just got to make sure you're monitoring your progression and making sure you're not setting yourself up for injury. Coach Ben here. You know where to find me. You can meet me at the whiteboard next to the bench. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel over here. You can check out a video related on the topic over here, and the most recent video down here. And if you're interested in joining our online coaching program, you can check out the link in the description box.